the day Africa will realize who they are. There will come a day, not announced by trumpets, not marked by fireworks, when Africa will pause, look into its own reflection, and finally recognize itself. That day will not be given by history books written elsewhere, nor granted by foreign approval or validation. It will be born from remembrance. It will be the day Africa realizes who they are. For centuries, Africa has been described rather than heard, studied rather than understood, exploited rather than respected. Narratives about the continent have too often been framed by outsiders, reducing a vast, complex civilization into a single story of lack, struggle, and dependency. Yet beneath these imposed narratives lies a deeper truth. Africa has always known who it is. What has been disrupted is not identity itself, but continuity, the unbroken transmission of memory, confidence, and self-definition. Africa is not a mistake of history. It is history's beginning, long before modern borders. Before the naming of continents, Africa was already shaping humanity. It was on African soil that the first humans walked, spoke, imagined, and dreamed. Civilizations rose along the Nile, the Niger, the Congo, and the Zambezi, building systems of governance, education, spirituality, science, and trade. Timbuktu's libraries preserved knowledge when much of the world was still learning to read. Great kingdoms such as Mali, Kush, Axum, Benin, Kemet, and Great Zimbabwe stood as evidence that Africa was not waiting to be discovered. It was already discovering itself. The day Africa realizes who they are will be the day these truths are no longer whispered as trivia, but spoken as foundations. It will be the day African children learn history that begins with pride, not interruption. When a child learns first about the brilliance of their ancestors before learning about colonization, something changes in their posture, their voice, their ambition. Identity, once rooted, becomes unshakable. Colonialism did not only take land and resources, it disrupted self-perception. It introduced the dangerous lie that progress must come from outside, that value is measured by proximity to foreign standards, and that African ways of knowing are inferior or outdated. Even after flags were raised and independence declared, mental chains remained. Languages were abandoned in favor of those imposed. Traditional governance systems were dismissed. Spirituality was ridiculed. Beauty was redefined. Success was measured by how far one could distance oneself from being African. The day Africa realizes who they are, that internalized disconnection will begin to dissolve. Africa will understand that development does not mean imitation. It will mean innovation rooted in culture. Modernity will no longer require erasure. African languages will not be seen as obstacles, but as vessels of wisdom. Indigenous knowledge systems will stand alongside modern science, not beneath it. The continent will stop asking, "How do we catch up?" and start asking, "How do we move forward as ourselves?" That day will also come with responsibility. To know who you are is not merely to celebrate the past. It is to act with intention in the present. Africa's realization will demand accountability from its leaders and citizens alike. Corruption will no longer be excused as a borrowed disease. Poor governance will not be blamed solely on history. The realization of identity will bring with it the courage to confront internal failures with honesty and dignity. Unity will take on a deeper meaning, not a false unity that ignores differences, but a shared understanding that diversity has always been Africa's strength. Thousands of ethnic groups, languages, and cultures coexist on one continent, not as a weakness, but as proof of richness. The day Africa realizes who they are, borders drawn without consent will lose their psychological power. Collaboration will replace competition. Trade within Africa will flourish. African problems will be solved by African minds, with global cooperation as partnership, not dependency. On that day, Africa will also redefine its relationship with the world. It will no longer seek to be included in global conversations as a junior participant. It will speak with confidence, knowing it has something essential to offer. The world, facing crises of climate, spirituality, community, and meaning, will look again to Africa, not as a resource to extract from, but as a teacher to learn from. Africa's communal values, respect for nature, and holistic understanding of life may hold answers modern systems are struggling to find. The African diaspora will feel this awakening too. Scattered by history, but connected by blood and memory, they will find not only roots to return to, but futures to build with. The healing of Africa's self-knowledge will ripple outward, mending generational wounds, and restoring a sense of belonging to millions who have felt in between worlds. The day Africa realizes who they are will not mean perfection. Struggles will remain, challenges will persist, but the difference will be clarity. A people who know who they are do not easily surrender their future. They negotiate differently, they dream differently, they rise differently. That day may not come all at once. It may arrive in classrooms where history is rewritten truthfully, in villages where traditions are honored without shame, in cities where innovation carries African names and philosophies, in art, music, fashion, and literature that speak boldly without explanation or apology, in quiet moments where an African looks in the mirror and sees not what the world once said, but what their ancestors always knew. When Africa realizes who they are, it will not be a beginning, it will be a return. And from that return, a new chapter of human history will unfold, one written with dignity, wisdom, and self-belief. If you enjoy this masterpiece, comment where you are watching this video. Follow and share